Before I even start, I would like to wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whether you celebrate or not. I just hope you have a good day, whether you're celebrating on your own, with family, with friends, loved ones, etc., etc. Enjoy yourself. Take a day off, relax, have some fun. You wholeheartedly deserve it. And secondly, I want to thank you all for the amazing support this year. I don't think words can really describe how grateful and honored I am to be able to make videos and hopefully for them to be enjoyable for all of you to watch continuously, day after day. It allows me to be creative and turn a passion of understanding literature and talking about manga specifically into explanation videos, discussions, conversations, analysis, critiques, quote-unquote reviews, whatever buzzword you want to give it. And what fuels that passion even further is all of you, the beautiful, incredible support that all of you have provided me over the years. I am entirely thankful. I never seen myself being where I am today in terms of YouTube, but I'm continuing to grow and trying to better myself in that sense of creativity and making videos, and honestly I'm just having a lot of fun with it. To open up a line of dialogue between myself and all of you. Once again, thank you for all of the amazing support. I truly appreciate you. So today I wanted to talk about a manga that I've been meaning to talk about for quite some time. A Trail of Blood, Blood on the Tracks, Chino Wadachi, I believe it's called. I have talked about this manga before, and I kind of continuously bring it up here and there, depending on the situation. But this series has been nothing but impressive. The epitome of authenticity. Now this feeling may not necessarily be new, but it is definitely scarce. It's very rare that I have this feeling towards a series because of how they're handling their story, how they're handling their narrative or their characters or whatever it may be. And there's a common connection for that, and it's doing the impossible, something that I wouldn't expect a story to be able to achieve because of how authentic it needs to be. And something as simple as pacing, for example, can corrupt it, corrode it, and break it apart in every single facet. But time and time again, A Trail of Blood has continued to surprise me. It has continued to elevate itself beyond belief, and this year it has cemented itself as one of my all-time favorites. Not only has it done the impossible this year, it has done it in such a way that feels so scarily real, so heartbreaking, so destructive, but accurate. Almost like you're watching an episode of Criminal Minds, or you're reading a piece of document from a lawyer's case in regards to this person or this series. If for whatever reason you have not caught up to A Trail of Blood, it currently has 111 chapters, I believe. I would highly recommend you do. Experiencing this year's chapters alone is such an incredible experience. And personally, I haven't seen many series come close to how this author, Oshimi Shuzo, handles the self-destruction of a young boy. But with that, let's begin. I think it would be appropriate to provide a bit of context. There has only ever been one story for me that not only personally hit so hard and so close to home, but is such a realistic portrayal of real life. Not every story or narrative has to encompass this authenticity. It doesn't have to tiptoe around it. That's the beauty of literature, the freedom within it. You can showcase things in many differing ways. But when you start to play around with the idea of mental health, for example, some very serious topics, one of the best things literature can provide is not only multiple differing perspectives, the nuance, the emotional response to everything, but with a level of intensity that is rarely ever felt or mimicked, replicated per se. And the only way that you would ever get this type of authenticity if you're treating the subject or the topic that you're focusing on with a very high level of respect. It's one thing to experience it yourself and put it within a story compared to researching it and spin it within your own narrative. Only one author has managed to purposefully capture this feeling of authenticity, and that is none other than Ino Asano with Oyasumi Punpun. If you have read Oyasumi Punpun, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This series is by all means the definition of an experience that is so tailored and personal. I wouldn't be surprised if Ino Asano himself has gone through this before in some way, shape or form and has weaponized it for his storytelling experience. It feels that personal. If not, he has such a true understanding of what it is like to experience these things, and how that's portrayed within Punpun is not only beyond impressive but borderline impossible. It's rare that authors can achieve that, which is a big reason why Ino Asano is considered a genius, a prodigy within Japan, and why a lot of his works kind of mimic each other in that sense of authenticity. The severity, the trauma, the genuine approach to mental health. It's so scary because of how real it is, which makes it ever more thought-provoking and emotional. A Trail of Blood, however, has gone a completely different direction. And while Oshimi Shuzo has been someone that has jumped around the idea of mental health for many years now within a lot of his works, the authenticity behind it in comparison to someone like Ino Asano was never really there. And it's not because of the approach Oshimi Shuzo took. It's not because of his lack of experience or his lack of professionalism, but instead he purposefully tailors a different experience. He mixes a more intense authenticity within it, a more thriving and suffocating world and atmosphere and artistic flair within these very real and traumatizing emotions. This is someone that's taking the genius that is Ino Asano's work and stylizing it in a way where it's almost akin to being horror, but not to the point where it's over the top or it completely breaks the foundation or the respect towards mental health, but instead elevates it, uplifts it, shines a different light on it completely. And A Trail of Blood, for me personally, is the perfect example of that. A story that I consider a polar opposite to Ino Asano's Oisumi Punpun. I would even consider this work to be Oshimi Shuzo's magnum opus, the grand piece within his body of literature. And even though he does have a very prominent work known as The Flowers of Evil, which is equally just as good, the amount of attention that is poured within A Trail of Blood is something else entirely. That is on a whole nother league in that department, and something that is very real, scary, and authentic. Over the span of 111 chapters, you will see the utter derailment of a young child. In every department of this child's mind, you will see it fracture and tear itself apart and try to rebuild itself in so many different ways that it is saddening, that it is heartbreaking, it is emotional. This ever so growing and toxic relationship between a mother and her son paints one of the realest and scariest images that you can imagine. This relationship spiraling out of control, with both of these individuals being so inherently sick to such an extent. But you see this drip fed throughout 111 chapters. It doesn't just happen instantly, it happens with time. You see it increase and get worse and worse, and it deteriorates. And this in itself is one of the most impressive consistency points for A Trail of Blood. This deterioration of the mind, of the emotions of this relationship, and watching it distort itself and spiral out of control is absolutely insane. But where it's spiraling to isn't nowhere. It's not floating off within the distance to have some sort of abrupt ending, but it has a conclusive point. It's building up to something. And over those 111 chapters, you start to see more and more of it until you realize the section where it's actually going to take place, where these two inherently sick characters, a mother and her son, are going to confront not only each other, but themselves. And you will see a version of story that has always been there, but in such a brutal new light. When I say that this story manages to make you hold your breath every time you read it, that is not an exaggeration. This is one of the only stories that makes me hold my breath, that I feel like I have to pace around my house to comprehend what I just read. And when I finally sat down and went through the remaining chapters of this year alone, I'd done exactly that. I caught up, and I felt like I had to vent. I felt like I had to sit down and digest everything that I just experienced. And it's not something that is so overwhelming because of how graphic it is or how gory or just disturbing it is in nature, but I think more so how real it is, how once again authentic, how you've come to see this character deteriorate over so much time and energy, and this mother having such a vice over her son, to watching it vanish in front of his eyes, to watching it fade away into obscurity, and that very poor child to reach a breaking point, a point of almost no return. The thing is, you see this drawn in such an incredible way with so much artistic flair that it kind of burns itself within your memory. I truly wish that I could show you the specific panels that I'm talking about that are so powerful, that are filled with so much purpose yet so simple. They're not cluttered or all over the place or have this nice clean style to it. If anything, it is the most jumbled up mess of lines that you would see, but is drawn with so much intent. The character's facial expression or body being drawn with squiggly lines, almost like Oshimi Shuzo has grabbed a pen with his full fist and scribbled this character into existence like a toddler. But it has that intent of being effective, that there is a reason that this character is drawn this way, and you will come to understand this when reading A Trail of Blood, that every character has this very specific version of how they're drawn and how this artwork interprets them and how it evolves with the intensity of their emotions. If they're really angry, or if they're really sad, or if they're menacing or looming, etc., etc. There's always a very unique interpretation of that, and this is the first time that we have ever seen such a saddening, distorted, kind of disgusting outlook of what this child has become. It's horrifying, to put simply, but you can't help but feel bad or even sad for the whole situation itself, because this child has gone through so much. For me, that is the impossible. This showcase of mental deterioration over such a long length of time with so much detail, but its pacing is perfect. It's not too slow, it's not too quick, it's literally perfect, and it boils over time, it bleeds, it drips, it knows exactly what it wants to do, and it will sit there and simmer for months upon months at a time and then drastically spike. But over that whole time, it was boiling, it was rising, it was reaching its limit. I cannot express enough just how incredible Oshimi Suzo has done with both of these characters, this relationship and this deterioration of a young boy's mind. I don't want to say that this is a complete, accurate, and authentic portrayal of deterioration within mental health, but it is a very scarily realistic interpretation of it. It doesn't come off as psychotic, it doesn't come off as crazy or any sort of disorder that inhibits that sort of psychotic nature behind it. It doesn't have this over-exaggeration to it. Even though artistically it is over-exaggerated with purpose and with intent, it never comes in contact or crosses over that point of no return where it feels fickle, where it feels fake. Every point within this story feels real. It feels like a real relationship. It is probably the only time, as for now, that you will see such an incredibly intensive breakdown of a young boy's mind. Breaking it bit by bit by bit until there is nothing there, until there is nothing for that boy to hang on to, until it shatters in front of him, until he loses sight of himself, his own worth, his purpose, his humanity. Everything that makes him is no longer a thing. I understand fully, wholeheartedly, that this story isn't for everyone, and I would not recommend this story for everyone. But if you are looking for a story that is similar to any of the works by Ino Asano, that is so mentally taxing and draining, and something that is truly a perfect interpretation of the mental destruction of a singular boy's mind, A Trail of Blood, Blood on the Tracks, or Chino Wadachi is 100% 100% for you. I cannot express it enough on how much the story needs more attention. And while I believe it is very successful within Japan and Oshimi Shuzo is getting the well-deserved praise that he should get, outside of Japan, I believe it needs more. But then again, it is a hard task to promote towards people. It's not a story everyone wants to read because of how draining it can be, because of how your own personal experiences will inhibit a specific response to what you're reading. If you had trouble or difficulties reading Oyasumi Punpun, you will most likely have those same struggles with A Trail of Blood. And that is not a fault by any means of your own. That is the utter talent of authors that are able to interpret such traumatizing real-world feelings and implementing them within a story in such an authentic way, in a way that feels believable, that feels real. That is such an extremely difficult thing to do, and how A Trail of Blood has done it, it's borderline impossible. I don't know how Oshimi Shuzo has done it, but he has, and he's done it exponentially well, to the point where I have tried this whole video to not spoil or completely give away the whole narrative. I have tiptoed around the very bare minimum of what the story actually provides, because it is an experience that I believe that you should all enjoy yourself. Experience that intensity, that heartbreak, that overwhelming feeling of indulging this story. It will make you question yourself, your relationship. It might even make you pace around the house or try to start some sort of conversation just so you can express your thoughts towards this story. For me personally, this manga is a masterpiece, and however Oshimi Shuzo came to write this story, I see it as his magnum opus, his pinnacle of perfection. And that's not to disrespect or disregard his other stories, his other bodies of work, but this is on a whole different level. This is The Flowers of Evil times 10 or times 100. It makes me excited to see future works by him and where he wants to go and what he wants to do. I know he is currently working on another story, and it would seem that A Trail of Blood is tiptoeing around the idea of ending, but the experience that it has given so far has been nothing short of amazing, of breathtaking, of heartbreaking. And I would time and time again recommend that if you feel comfortable enough to read it, to fully go ahead and indulge within it. You will not be disappointed. I can guarantee you that. Endtime. So welcome to the end of the video. If you have made it this far, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. But I would love to know your thoughts about A Trail of Blood, especially with more of the recent stuff. If you want to leave your thoughts, please try and catch up to 110, 111th chapter, and then let me know how you feel. Because everything that I've somewhat expressed within this video has been because of the build-up of 90-odd chapters and the payoff within that 90 to 110 chapter range. That is where everything reaches its climatic final point, and it is done in such a beautiful way, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that. But if you're nowhere near caught up, let me know how you're feeling about A Trail of Blood. Maybe you're at the beginning, maybe you're halfway through it. Are you enjoying it? Do you think it's something interesting, or maybe you absolutely hate it? Maybe it's not for you. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. But with that, I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you within the next one. Goodbye.